Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Wednesday night Bible study here with the West Main Church of Christ. I hope that you've been having a fantastic day, a fantastic week, and I'm really excited that you took a second to tune in to another midweek Bible study here with me. But before we get into that, I always want to start these videos off with what we call our fun thought of the day or the week or whatever it may be. And I don't know how many of you all know this about me, but I grew up working in the auction business. My dad and his partner, Mr. Larry, were auctioneers for a large part, still are, but for a large part of myself growing up, me and my brother would go and we'd help my dad with these auctions. We were what you would call ringmen. And the ringmen were not the people that spoke really fast, but were the guys that held everything up and would scream when somebody would bid. And we got to do all the heavy lifting, right? So that was part of it too. But I thought, because of all the weird things that I've seen growing up as the kid of an auctioneer, and there were some really cool ones. But today I thought I'd share with you the top 3 toys that I ever found at an auction while working for my dad. All right, so number 3 was a Red Ryder BB gun. And I mean straight out of A Christmas Story, still in the box, compass in the stock, beautiful Red Ryder BB gun. It was a sense of nostalgia. I love the movie A Christmas Story. But sadly, I was not allowed to buy it for some reason. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was not allowed to buy that. But I thought that was really cool to find and look at, like an actual. It was the first time I'd seen one in person after watching A Christmas Story. It was a Red Ryder BB gun. Number 2 was a wood burning kit. Yes, there are parents watching this right now that remember this, but I had no idea what it was the first time I saw it, and so I had to have my dad explain it to me. And basically, it's a wood burner. It came in a box about this big, and basically all this was a really pointy stick that you would plug in, I think, and it got really hot. And it would come with this block of wood, and you would take this really hot pointy stick and you would just like burn designs into this block of wood. Yes, this was an actual toy that people used to be able to go and buy. I can't imagine why they don't sell these anymore for ages like 5 to 8. I can't possibly figure that out. But yeah, wood burning kit. Again, I had no idea what it was. I wasn't allowed to buy that either. Shocking, right? I wasn't allowed to buy that. But the number one most awesome toy that I ever found with my dad growing up as an auctioneer was lawn darts. And no, I'm not talking about like the plastic lawn darts with the rounded edges that like you throw at a hula hoop in the front yard. I mean like these big hunkin' metal, needed a tetanus shot after looking at one, lawn darts that weighed like 25 pounds a piece. Not really, but that's what it felt like as a kid. And you know, it was one of those things, and that's what my dad had to explain to me. Again, because I was younger, I knew what a lawn dart was, and I kind of got the gist of it. And my dad would tell me stories about how, like he and his buddies didn't necessarily play lawn darts like they were probably supposed to. But yeah, I wasn't allowed to buy that either. So the 3 coolest toys I ever found at an auction house, my parents wouldn't let me buy any of them. But yeah, a Red Ryder BB gun, a wood burning kit, and like the original lawn darts. I've gotten to see some really cool stuff. I've had to lift and move a lot of heavy things. But being an auctioneer's kid was a lot of fun growing up, and I got to see and learn about a bunch of stuff that a lot of kids probably don't know about nowadays, just because now they're considered antiques, right? But anyway, that's your fun thought of the day. Again, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. This is our Wednesday night family devotional geared toward our kids, our teens, and our families. If you don't have everybody with you here watching this, pause the video for a second, go gather everybody and bring them in, because I don't want you to miss this. This week, we are concluding a series that over the last several weeks we've been calling Real Spirituality. And through this series, we've been looking at Pixar movies, and we've been diving into them, kind of taking apart their storylines and applying those to our lives as Christians. And this week is our final week. I know that you guys have been enjoying this. I hope and pray that we get to maybe build off this in the future. But for right now, this is going to be our last week to do this particular series. Next week, we'll still be able to have these devotionals, and we'll go through some more stuff. But if you haven't figured it out yet, this week in Real Spirituality, we are going through the movie Toy Story, the original Pixar movie, the thing that started off all of it, all the way back in like 1990. It was either 5 or 96. I don't remember exactly what. You guys can Google that after this lesson is over. But Toy Story, one of the most awesome Pixar movies of all time, the original, like I said. And Toy Story is this movie follows a cowboy named Woody and a space ranger named Buzz, and it follows their journey from enemies to best friends and all of their adventures they had in between that led them to be to come to that conclusion. So I wanted to dive into this with you tonight, and I wanted to maybe end this one on a really fun special note, going back to the very first one. So Toy Story, real spirituality tonight. Here we go. Ready? Point number one: change can lead to something good. So the movie Toy Story opens up with a birthday party for Andy. Andy is the young boy who Woody and Buzz belong to him. So Andy starts with this party, and he opens up a Buzz Lightyear, a brand new Buzz Lightyear action figure, and it's so exciting. But that's a big change, right? Because Woody's been Andy's favorite toy forever, but now Buzz is in the picture, and it's a lot to handle, right? Everything that Woody thought he knew is just kind of shifted now all of a sudden. But you have to remember, in the end, they both become good friends because they realize that there is this greater good, and they follow that, and they understand and learn how to understand each other. And so that change, even though they start off not liking each other, ends up them being really, really good friends. If there was ever a person in the Bible that had to deal with probably more drastic change in his life throughout the course of his entire life, to me, it's Joseph. Joseph, the guy who was kind of betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, and then he would rise to power in Potiphar's house. And then he would get into a sticky situation in Potiphar's house and be thrown in prison. And yet, while he's in prison, he's able to help people, and he's going to rise up to be one of the second most powerful man just behind Pharaoh. That's Genesis chapters 37, 39, and 41. You can find all of that stuff there. It's a really interesting story. But all throughout that, Joseph remembers and relies on his faith and understands and looks for the opportunities and the good that has to come out of this. And I've said this from the very beginning. Okay, if you guys have been keeping with us throughout all of this, I know that we're in week 9, 10, whatever it is at this point. But I've said this from the very beginning. Something good has to come out of what we're going through. It has to. Whether that's a new fire inside of you that has been reignited and you're more on fire to do the work of God now more than ever. Whether that is a refocused mindset about when we do get to go back to worship in person, not taking that for granted and putting forth that extra effort to stay focused and having a heart and a mindset for worshiping God. Something good has to come out of all of this. And we can't come out of this overly complacent or too comfortable or accepting what this new way is. It has to be something, when we move on, it has to be productive, and we have to be able to move forward, giving God the glory, but also doing His work. Point number two, because something good has to come out of this, and because we will have to move forward eventually, right? We have to. We have to move forward eventually because of all that. Number two, we will have personal struggles to overcome. There's kind of a funny sad point in the movie where Buzz gets hit with this really hard reality, because all throughout the course of the movie, he thinks he is the Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger of Star Command, who's there to protect the intergalactic alliance from the evil Emperor Zurg, and there's so much that goes into that person that he is, and he gets hit with this really hard reality that he's a toy, right? What Woody's been telling him the whole time, he's just a toy. He's not the Buzz Lightyear. And there's this scene where he's all but given up, and he's got this apron on, a hat, and he calls himself Mrs. Nesbit, right? And he's all but given up, but he's got Woody there to make sure that he can move forward. And eventually he does, right? Eventually Buzz realizes that, hey, it may not be exactly what I thought it was, but I can move forward. There are going to be personal hurdles for us to overcome as well, moving through all of this. And that's absolutely okay, because we have the ability to rely on God. Psalm 27 verse 1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? We can rely on God and move forward without being afraid. Right? Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And Joshua chapter 1 and verse 9, which is one of my favorites, says, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, and do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. We're all going to have personal struggles to overcome on the other side of this. And maybe it will be overcoming a mindset. Maybe we've gotten too comfortable. Maybe we've gotten too complacent. Maybe we are too afraid, or maybe we're too worn down, and the stress and anxiety and all these things just keep piling on top of us, and it's going to be hard. And nobody's saying that it may not be hard, but, excuse me, but we have the ability to rely on God. I mean, look at all the struggles that Paul was able to overcome in his life. He had to overcome his past, right? That was something that always followed him around wherever he went. He speaks of the thorn in his side, which we're not privy to know what that is, but it was something that he obviously had to overcome. And then he had to overcome that mindset and that personal desire that he had being torn of doing God's work while he was here on earth, and also a desire to go and to be with God. But with a steady faith and with a little help, we can overcome. Which brings us to point number 3. Point number 3, and I would feel like something was absolutely wrong if I did not include this in this Devo. Point number 3 is, you've got a friend in me. This actually is just a song through the movie. It's a slogan of the movie, and everybody knows that, despite the fact that it doesn't have anything to do with actual characters, but it speaks to this newfound friendship that Bud, Buzz, and Woody use to accomplish their goals. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron, so does a person sharpen another. And Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 14 says, therefore, as God's chosen ones, holy and dearly loved, put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. Because if anyone has a grievance against you, just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you are also to forgive. But above all, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. Folks, let me be really clear about this. We're going to start entering a time, hopefully sooner rather than later, where things are going to start opening back up. Restaurants are open back up now. Gyms are open back up now here in the state of Mississippi. And we're entering this time where, guess what? Not everybody is going to agree with every decision that's being made. But for those of us who see each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, above all, we have to have love. And remember that you have a friend in me. Regardless of those that want to stay at home versus wanting to go to worship, those who are comfortable going out and going to the grocery store versus those who aren't, above all, there is love. We need to be able to move forward at our paces, being able to do that without fear of judgment and being rebuked by everybody. If we all strive for love through those decisions, everything is going to be okay. And to understand that you have friends that are bonded together by one faith, by one Lord, by one God, is something that we cannot ever take for granted. Because you've got a friend in me. And even if you feel like you don't, as we stated before, Christ is always there with us. But I think you would be surprised at how many people are going to be there and can and will be there to support you through this. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I hope this was a pretty good conclusion to this series, Real Spirituality. As always, for my West Main family, please stick around. I have just a couple of announcements for you. First off, if you are in our older high school group, parents that had the calendar that I passed out before all this started, or I may have just emailed it out right as all this started. But in July, there was a trip scheduled, that's a whitewater rafting trip. That, unfortunately, is going to be postponed until 2021. Okay, so there will not be any rafting trip again this year. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Everything that we had scheduled for the month of June is also going to be put on hold. So devotionals that may or may not have been planned, I think we had a service project and a fun day scheduled in June. All of those have been canceled. If something about that changes, I will personally reach out to you all and let you know what is changing about that when. But the fun day and everything that we had scheduled in June, the area-wide, all that stuff has been canceled as well. And then our VBS committee met this particular week, and I want to speak to this because the VBS committee, it's a VBS planning committee that we've had installed here at West Main. It comprises of myself, Chris Johnson, Russ Harrell, Donna Loden, Shelley Wood, and Miss Leah Bridges. All of us have worked really, really hard for VBS, and we had a meeting earlier this week, and we have decided to forego having VBS in 2020. Now, I don't know if this will change, but we have made that decision for a number of reasons because we want the priorities of West Main to be focused on being together. We want to be able to put our best foot forward when it comes to VBS no matter what, and we just don't know, with the time crunch being what it is at this point, we just don't know how to make VBS as great as we want it to be with the limitations that we have. So as of right now, VBS has been canceled for 2020, and I'm really sorry about that, but I want you guys to know that it will be back in 2021, and we will do our absolute best to make it as awesome as it possibly can be. Okay. As always, please be sure to stay connected with cards, with drive-by visits, phone calls, reaching out to somebody, anybody, everybody needs to know that we are there for them. Chelsea and I were super uplifted over the weekend getting to visit with some of you all, and again yesterday afternoon with Mr. Potter's birthday. That was pretty incredible, and we are so appreciative of the family that we've got. But be sure to stay connected throughout the course of all of this. I don't know when the end of all this is going to be. I know that it's sooner this week than it was last week, and I hope and pray that it comes quickly. But in the meantime, remember that we love you, and God does too. Thank you guys so much.